and welcome back to the War Room for Courageous Wives for our second edition of our daily confessions and affirmations for our marriage. Before we get started today, I kind of wanted to talk about something that came to mind that maybe you hadn't thought about, but or maybe you have, I don't know. But since we're on the topic of confessions and watching what we say and speaking life, have you ever said something during an argument that you wish you could take back? I know I have a lot of times, more often, than I want to admit, but I'm trying to be better about that. And so I want everyone to just be mindful of, when we let our emotions speak for us, we end up fighting against our relationship instead of the original intent, which is to hopefully, make our point or, express some sort of feeling or, that we have. We don't realize that blanket statements during arguments are actually declarations. When you say stuff like, you're selfish, you're childish, you're inconsiderate, you always hurt me, you do this, you do that, you're this, you're that. Those are declarations. And I don't think any of us want to speak that into existence. So, I encourage you to watch your mouth, watch what you say, try to express how you feel without allowing the enemy to use you as a mouthpiece to speak a negative confession over your marriage and over your husband. Your words mean more to your husband than you'll ever know. So I'm striving to speak my truth with kind words that are sweet to his soul and healthy for the body, according to Proverbs 16:24. And I encourage you to do the same. To be honest, I feel like a lot of these issues stem from a lack of respect we have for God. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow and kind of a tough statement to say, but think about it. If you were talking to someone who was a child of like your mentor or someone you admired, your boss at work, you'd be cautious with how you speak to them, because you wouldn't want to, offend, the person they're connected to. Because they're connected to greatness. So in the same way, even though you're comfortable with your husband, let's remember that he is a child of God and highly favored by God and highly valued by God. So even if you're upset with them, remember that if you mishandle or abuse them emotionally or physically, you're messing with God's appointed one. Let's just be honest. You're messing with God's son right there. And he's going to deal with us about that. I actually got told that by, I seeked wise counsel on a situation. And I was reminded that if I disrespect my husband, God is going to deal with me on that. He is going to, and that hinders our prayers and, the things that we're asking God about. And this kind of brings me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about. I know one friend of mine that I was speaking to, who she's doing this challenge with us. She's confessing, daily, speaking life over her marriage and over her husband, and confessing positive affirmations. And she's saying, I've been actually, she's been on this journey a while. She's been doing it a while. And she said, I haven't seen any change. And, this goes out to everyone who feels that way. I just want to send you some encouragement. I'm sorry for my pause there. I'm trying to get my thoughts together. I've been the wife that has prayed for her husband in desperation. I've spent hours on my knees praying that God would give me direction, strength, and love for the man that my soul loves. I've cried out to God, questioning, why the changes I was praying for and I was confessing, why they aren't happening. I've asked God, why the promises that he gives in his word regarding marriage weren't a part of my life. When changes aren't taking place, we tend to give up. We tend to stop trying and to say, God isn't listening, to start believing that he doesn't care about us, that to think that we can do this better on our own. I'll just go back to doing what I did before. But I challenge you to maybe think, to yourself and ask yourself, what if the prayer that we're praying isn't meant to change our husbands? Too often we're ready to pray that, God changes the actions, attitudes, or people in general, our husbands. But we don't consider that the changes probably need to be made within ourselves first. We fail to take a good look, at us, and beg God to change us instead, to make us into the women that he created us to be, the women we want to be, the women he wants us to be. I've learned that often when, I'm dropping to my knees to pray to my husband, the changes actually, need to be made in me first. So, I'm admitting that we need to change first is not an easy step, especially when, the whole goal of us praying is like, okay, we're trying to pray for our husbands. You know what I mean? But often how God moves on our husbands' hearts begins with changing us first. When your husband sees God working on, in, and through you, changing us and making us more like God, they'll be more willing to accept God moving on them and then changing in their lives. But I just also want to remind you that, God has got this. He will work everything out for your good because he loves you and because you love him. It's your responsibility to keep seeking God, keep seeking the Lord on your husband's behalf and allowing God to change you to become more like him. God will take care of the rest. He's faithful and he will complete the good work in you and in your husband. His timing is perfect, and in his timing, he will answer your prayers and your confessions will all manifest. God will answer. God is working on, in, and through you and your prayers. Hello, courageous wives. Before we get to our confession for today, I do have to interrupt. I'm so sorry, but you will thank me later because I'm here to tell you about this amazing platform, Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. So if you're like me and you have a lot to say or you have a lot in your mind and you just want to get it off your chest, maybe starting a podcast is something that you can do too. It's free. There's creation tools that allows you to record, distribute, and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will also help you distribute your podcast so that you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more. You can make money from your podcast with minimum listenership. I mean, that's super cool, right? Especially if you're just starting out like me. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, back to it. Today's affirmation. This month will be a supernatural month in my marriage. I will lay hold of supernatural healing, supernatural deliverance, supernatural forgiveness, and supernatural blessings. I commit this month to only speak blessings over my marriage. In Jesus' name.